It's been a tough week for the office of the special prosecutor. In fact, this week he had his prosecutorial powers literally stripped from him. And also now we know that every single conviction that he has since that office was set up is gone with it. Of course, not much conviction. If you look at the OSP website, there is 7 convictions. But in fact, if you look at it, it's really 2. There is 1 in the Charles Bisu case. There's another in the Tamale case. The individuals involved, 7, but 2 cases that has led to prosecution. But of course, also, there's a bigger question about the utility of that office. Because while we want to fight corruption as a country, and in fact, everyone on both sides of this argument agree that corruption must be fought. However, is the OSP the right fit? Do we have to devise some other means to do so? This is an office that has been guzzling public resources since at least 2018. Millions and millions of cedis in allocation. But in terms of the tangibles, the outcomes, people have raised concerns. But to be very fair to the office also, how long did it take for that office to get all the resources that it requires to be able to do its job, to be able to set up the office, to be able to recruit? How long did that take? And so while people are demanding a lot from the OSP, the other question is, as a country, have you resourced it well enough? Or perhaps what we've given it is still enough? So it's a two-pronged question tonight on Ghana Connect. Really about whether or not this office has lived up to the responsibility of an anti-corruption fighting body. Are the corrupt politicians and their cronies, are they afraid of the OSP? Because whenever they've taken on any politician, political class holder to court, we all know how it's ended, at least for now. And so it's a big conversation. I have really interesting minds that are connecting with us on this very important conversation.
Those who do not understand, please forgive me. They say, I'm a Kwanoma. And the Mekra about for it. Yet you meet to me.
Enti no be akwanu make media waka kwentiomu. Magansa, Charlie, this is my beautiful voice. But anyway, you guys are not lucky enough to get this beautiful voice to sing. But it's a big conversation. The OSP says, Ankwanoma, or the way to me, Nimreswanoko. The 7 years for Kisia Jabin is running. I think next year, the first term expires. As to whether or not he gets another term, or even if that office will be in existence at the time, we are yet to see, and we'll get to see that pretty shortly. But will that office outlive all this back and forth that he's grappling with? 055-1111-997. Please do send us your thoughts on our WhatsApp console. Let us hear from you. Let us get to know what you think. 055-1111-997. My name is Kwaku Asante, and as always, this is Ghana Connect. We connect Ghanaians home and abroad. I'm talking about connecting Ghanaians home and abroad. Let's talk about the people that we are connecting with on the show today. Kwaku Asante is Director of Communications at the Lands Ministry. He seems to have a lot on his plate. He speaks for NIMOS. He speaks partially for Environment Ministry because his boss is the caretaker minister there. But today, he is here to share his views in his personal capacity as a Ghanaian who sees the office of the Special Prosecutor and want to share his views on that. I don't know if he's perhaps afraid that at some point that office may come after him, but he's here and he's going to share his connections and views with us. Standoff, it's good to have you connected with us. Yes. Well,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I'm saying the pleasure is all mine, except that I do not understand why.
You do not have any fear of the Special Prosecutor, whether or not they will come after you. You are doing your things right at the Lands Ministry and making sure that the 8-bedroom house you have, everything is bought and paid for properly.
These are lies. These are lies.
Okay.
Please go on with the introductions.
Brilliant. Okay, that's off. Ebenezer Afanidazi is a very, very, very senior journalist. Those days when I used to listen to him on another network, I was pretty young. And he's been here. He's seen a lot. He was very, very much in the thick of affairs, listening to what was happening in Parliament when this bill was enacted. He's seen it all up until the controversy now, and there's some interesting views to share on this. Ebenezer Afanidazi, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you, Kwaku. Glad to be here today.
Definitely. And then Gershon Edmond Mojaka is with the emerging leaders in Australia, Africa diplomacy, and is a very powerful voice when it comes to some of these issues. Gershon, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you very much, Kwaku. I hope you are doing well.
Brilliant. And then Benjamin Alpha is a lawyer. He used to come on this show when he was learning, and now he became a learned and he's abandoned all his friends. Now he's a big man, but he's connecting with us also. Benjamin, it's good to have you connect with us.
Good to connect with you and with my brother Standoff, the big man in the studio.
Yes, you should see the kaftan he's wearing, sitting here with the
I can see
17 Pro Max.
Every accolade you give him is deserved.
There's prosperity. There's a lot of prosperity in this country. Well, we are all struggling under this sun. Some people can feel it.
He's a titan in government communications. And also to senior Afeidazi and then Gershon. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let me start with you, Ebenezer Afanidazi. Let's start on a very on that note with you. With all that is happening, what is your sense? What do you get from all the controversy? It started last year when the Special Prosecutor himself started by, arresting Martin Kpebu in a way that was really described in the terms that should have been described. It was very silly, that action. It didn't end anywhere because Martin Kpebu has not been prosecuted. He made an allegation against that office, against the Special Prosecutor. He didn't take any to it. They arrested him, detained him until late in the night. He was released. But that set a big storm for his troubles. There was a bill proposed in Parliament to just scrap the entire office off. It had to take the president to intervene. Then someone goes to court and says, listen, this guy, the office doesn't even have the powers to do what they purpose to be doing. And that Parliament was wrong to have enacted that law. And then, now in High Court, someone goes by way of a quo warranto application to the High Court. And now everything is coming down crashing. Of course, the office is still there. They are fighting this. They say they're going to appeal. They haven't done so yet. But they are fighting this every step of the way. And now the Attorney General says, listen, I'm taking steps to enforce the judgment of the court. I'm going to go and take over all the cases. How they're going to do that, we'll get to know. What is the state of play? What is going on? Hello, Eben.
Hello, Kwaku, I can hear you.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, I think that at this point, I'm as confused as you and probably many other Ghanaians, especially those of us who repeatedly heard the promise on corruption fight. But also, I think that I like the chronology of events you gave, because the last time we spoke on this show, we were very passionate about the corruption fight and how we thought that this was because politicians are not comfortable and then there's a power play between the AG and the OSP. And I think that at this point now, it's becoming a bit clearer to me that the fundamental problem we have here is that there's an issue with the approach or the model that we are running. Because you remember the last time I said that the US that we are modeling the OSP by, they do not have that permanent structure that we have now, where you have our OSP with a full office and almost a full prosecutorial power, which of course is being challenged. They have a temporary system. There are other countries that have that partial independence because you still take a certain power from the Attorney General. And so it's the model that appears to be the problem. But I don't think that the system necessarily wants the OSP to come down completely. The conversation is about the approach and the method we are using. And it looks to me, today, even listening to some lawyers from the MPP who are even saying that, well, we think that we dropped the ball on Article 88, that we thought that we overlooked it. We should have done something so that the OSP wouldn't have this problem it's having. And that was an admission. I heard former, one-time Attorney General Aikwe make that point. And I think that was a significant point. So there's an admission that something was probably wrong with the way we chose the approach from the beginning. At this point, I'm not becoming very extremely critical of the administration to say that, well, they want to bring the OSP down because they fear corruption. But I think that there's a confusion as to how it should operate. And for me, it's most likely that we'll get to a place of probably an amendment to solve this matter. That's how I see it now. So that's my position.
Yeah, Bojaka, what do you see with all the things that are happening? What are your views?
Thank you very much, Kwaku, and good evening to the good old Mr. Dazi and Mr. Standoff and the other panelists. Good evening,
the Venerable Benjamin Alpha.
Yes, and Honorable Benjamin Alpha, the incoming Honorable. Thank you very much. Well, I think I align with Mr. Dazi, okay? My worry was, so this law, when being passed, all the lawyers we had in this country, the then Attorney General, what's the name? Madame Gloria Ekufu, the Deputy Godfrey Dami, and then Joseph Penka. I hope you've all heard Joseph Penka's position on this issue.
Yes.
It's something they knew it will happen. So why did we put all these resources, I mean funds, human resources, and this money into this, excuse my language, fruitless fights that we were doing? We wanted to overcome corruption. And I want to say that the position of the court, I don't have any issue with the judge. I think Section 4, Clause 2 of the OSP law, or LI, the OSP law, I think it is explicit that they shall take permission from the, what's the name? The Attorney General. But I don't think the country, our leaders, I mean the past government and even current government and the OSP, the lawyers who occupied that office, Mr. Kiseja being a constitutional lawyer himself, all of them did not know this provision exists in this constitution. I think they've let Ghanaians down, especially those who are against corruption, those who see how the nation has been bleeding all this while. They've let us down. That's my initial comment. They've let us down.
So, Benjamin, where do you stand on the claims that the current government, under the Attorney General, we have Dr. Dominic Ayeni, Dr. Justice Sai, are just using surrogates sort of to hound the OSP from office? I should say that, of course, the subject of this co-aranto is completely unrelated to the AG, because this is somebody that was accused of a crime by the OSP. He was taken to court, to the criminal division, was being prosecuted, and then he sought to find out the authorization the OSP had, which has left to this. But there's also the NOAA from Madame Tikis and all of that. I wonder what you say to that specific issue.
Thank you, Kwaku. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Kwaku. To begin with, we need to be nuanced about this conversation. And I am introducing this angle of nuance because of what Senior Afeni said, which appears to be the confusion of many who have not really followed the conversation, right? First of all, let's look at what this is and what this is not. I'll begin with what this is not. This whole conversation is not about a turf war between the Attorney General and the Office of the Special Prosecutor. That's not what it is. Secondly, it is not about an institutional or government attempt to cripple one of the arms of our fight, our collective fight against corruption. That's not what it also is. And then finally, it is also not any attempt by the political class to gang up against an office pursuing public accountability and, prosecuting corruption. That's not what it is at all, as the conversation has been framed, so that any question that people have raised in this discussion have been attributed to one of these: either that we are deliberately trying to stifle an anti-corruption institution, or that there is a turf war between the AG and the OSP. That is not the case at all. What the case is, if you follow the conversation and if you have a very basic appreciation of our laws and our constitution, is purely a legal argument about whether our constitutional architecture can accommodate the OSP as it has been set up now. And in this conversation, what the Attorney General basically has done is to stick with what the Constitution says, which is what he has sworn an oath to defend. Now let's backtrack a bit. First of all, I think the conversation has upscaled to a new dimension because of Wednesday's judgment. But before that, the chronology and the proper transcript of events is that, first of all, a private legal practitioner and a citizen had filed a suit challenging the powers, the prosecutorial powers of the OSP at the Supreme Court, as we all know. And in that suit, he's alleging that if you look at Article 88, Clause 3 and 4, which concentrate all prosecutorial powers in the office of the Attorney General and can only be exercised by another person when that Attorney General has authorized expressly by law that person to do that. And saying that by that provision, Section 4 and Section 4 and 3 of the Office of Special Prosecutor Act is unconstitutional, and therefore invoking the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to strike it down. In that suit, it is the Attorney General that was sued, and the Supreme Court, in a long line of authorities, have decided that where a person is challenging the constitutionality of an act, it's the Attorney General that's the proper defendant. This is different from a situation where maybe you are challenging the powers of an office holder or what that person has done, like the case of the Auditor General and Co. that they were allowed to defend. If it is about the constitutionality of a provision of the Constitution, the Attorney General is the proper person. So the Attorney General was the one sued. Then the Attorney General, the Office of the Special Prosecutor applied to join, but the Supreme Court refused, sticking with its earlier precedent that the Attorney General is the proper person to be sued, who is the defendant. The Attorney General, in keeping with the Constitution, has filed legal argument, essentially agreeing in large part with the plaintiff and saying that, look, this setup is problematic, right? Now, to get the proper context, this is not the first time that the current Attorney General has made this comment. When this Office of the Special Prosecutor Act was being considered in Parliament as far back as March 2017, he made the same point about the fact that until we amend Article 88, Parliament cannot, by way of ordinary legislation, take away those powers and give it to any other entity, because that entity won't find its prosecutorial powers back into Article 88, which is the only place where we find prosecutorial powers in the Constitution. He had raised this point, and good principle demands that he is principled when this matter has come up now. And so I think that on the face of it, first of all, the Attorney General must be commended for sticking with principle, the principle that he believes is in keeping with the Constitution. But interestingly, it is not only the Attorney General who has expressed this opinion. The occupant of the very office itself, Kisi Jabin, at its vetting in July 2021, agreed that, in his own words, the setup of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is problematic. In fact, at that vetting, he promised that when he is given the nod, with his input, he would ask Parliament to sort of relook at the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act and sort of re-engineer it. So the Office of the Special Prosecutor itself, its very occupant, has held this view that the Attorney General has held. Now, this is what the event is as far as the Attorney General is concerned. In a very unrelated matter which happened in the High Court on Wednesday, somebody that the special prosecutor is prosecuting filed what is called a quo warranto. A quo warranto is basically a judicial review remedy, or in simple terms, an application that you take to court to compel an entity, a public body, to come and show the powers by which it exercises a certain authority. So if anybody is dealing with you or anybody is exercising a certain authority, and you think that the exercise of that authority is not grounded in law, that is the application you file. It's an originating motion. And that accused filed that. The Attorney General was not a party. He knew nothing about it. Then in that statement of case and the pleadings that were exchanged, it became obvious that the Office of the Special Prosecutor could not show its powers. Then the judge made that ruling. In the initial stages, when we had all not had the benefit of the ruling, people rumored that the judge may have been straying into the arena of constitutional interpretation, which he did not have jurisdiction to do. But with the benefit of hindsight and the full ruling, we now know that the judge simply answered the quo warranto question that was put before it, and subsequently made an order that prosecutions that had been initiated were void. Remember that a quo warranto is a public law remedy. A public law remedy is in the sense of something that inures to the public, and that it does not necessarily have to do with a private right. And so based on that, orders can be made which are broad and sweeping in the public interest. And the Attorney General has indicated that it is ready to comply with the orders of the court. Now, I've heard some people express an opinion, and I will...
Please, I want you to hold it there. I see that you're going to respond to some of the key issues that have come up there. I like the background you set, and this is why I want to bring in and Standoff and get to know what he thinks about this. I mean, you clearly see where we are going, and giving also the explanation that Benjamin has given, setting the proper context for the role of the AG and the government at large in this. Do you accept the premise of so many people who have looked at this beyond the law and said, listen, all of us, including Benjamin Alpha, you are being legalese about this, and that all that is happening is just NDC that is simply scheming to take out the OSP from office, either to appoint somebody else there that they can control, or to just do away with the office, and it just does away with the so-called promise of fighting corruption.
Well, Kwaku, so thank you for the opportunity to be part of this very important national discourse. And at the outset of my submission, I want to put on record, clearly for that matter, that my views here do not represent that of my ministry, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. I'm participating as an ordinary citizen who is equally concerned about the outlook of governance and the fight against corruption in our part of the world. I want to start off on this note. I have had cause. I remember this is 2020. I mean, in the lead up to the 2020 general election, I do remember when Martin Kpebu, no, what did I say, Martin Kpebu? The other guy, what's this guy?
Martin Amidu.
Almisi Amidu, yes, yeah. When he
Amidu, you are calling the other guy. Hey, the former vice presidential candidate.
I meant the other Martin. Don't put words in my mouth. So I remember, I mean, when he wrote that famous, letter, and we all saw the content. I remember reading it that morning, back then on my morning show, and that day something crossed my mind. So when these conversations happened, I said, time is really such a revealer. This is what came to mind after I read this episode. I felt that for as long as we're going to exist as a republic, that office was always going to be a forum for the production of controversies, subsequent to which, and I don't know if that particular show I hosted is available, otherwise anybody could confirm my views in that matter. I indicated that, look, that outfit or that establishment or that unit of our governance is certainly going to always manufacture problems, if not forever, because I felt that the primary function of that office, or the essence of its creation, would automatically, under the circumstances, in the light of our constitutional configuration, end up being duplicitous with what the Attorney General's office is supposed to do. Why? Because we say Special Office of the Special Prosecutor, do what?
Prosecute corruption related of
cases.
The politicians that the AG may not be willing to prosecute.
Absolutely. But you see, that argument of you've taken the wind out of my soul, but that's the same thing I was going to say anyway, that those who argue that, look, the special prosecutor was brought in to, as it were, accommodate situations where the AG may be politically conflicted. This is my point of departure. But if the Attorney General, who obviously any Attorney General who is appointed is presumed to be independent and fair-minded, if the person, I'm saying it advisedly, at a point it's feeling conflicted, and there is a human being, another human being is also going to be the special prosecutor. Why do we think the special prosecutor will be an angel and that person is impermeable to any form of influence? Where was that thinking? I was thinking, so Standoff and Kwaku Asante, both of them are men. And then we suspect that, okay, if Standoff is standing, and Standoff is Kwaku, I don't know why you're smiling. I'm just importing a scenario.
No, I don't know. How is he related to the?
I'll show you the point I want to make. Standoff is a man. Kwaku Asante is a man. Both of them, they are male. They have masculine tendencies, and we are presuming that. As for Kwaku Asante, if you strip him naked and there is a lady who is touching him in a certain way, he will not respond.
See,
but you believe
I'm coming.
That's not the point. Don't take the wind out of my sail again. But Kwaku Asante would not respond. But Standoff perhaps may respond. Where is the thinking? All of them are human beings. Okay, so therefore, therefore, since they are human beings, all of them are susceptible to the same influences.
Between Kisia Jabin, I'm coming. Standoff. Just one question. No. Between Kisia Jabin, between Kisia Jabin or Martin Amidu as special prosecutor. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Dominic Ayine, who do you think is more likely to prosecute Emmanuel Amankufibua, for instance, if there was an issue between his cabinet colleague and the Attorney General, the cabinet colleague, the minister, your minister? If anything happened, and I don't wish it happens, who do you think will more likely prosecute and do it with some more verve compared between those two?
You see, so your presumption is that because...
But we've seen it.
No. Your presumption is that because the special prosecutor, as it were, is not a cabinet member or a core functionary of the executive, that person...
He's not even part of the executive.
Thank you. You've won. You've advanced my argument for me. And that's the faulty presumption, that because that person is not part of the executive operational setup, the person will exercise a certain kind of independence. But what we do not know is that individual, the special prosecutor, not the current one we have, the office holder, may also have very serious ties to people in government, even more than the Attorney General may have. So if you are talking about influences, what really is the point? It's like, you see, and that is why even when you go to the courts,
wanted to put people there who are strong, who can put aside some of those inclinations.
You keep on obstructing my train of thought. You see, the thing about inclination and all these arguments about bias, this person will be fair and all of that. I'm saying so long as we are all humans as we are, you will not be able to eliminate them. So where we begin to think as a society, as a people, that when you create this office, unless the office will be manned by AI setups or some robots, that is when we can have that kind of independence. Nipano, the OSP, for example, whoever is appointed, you Kwaku Asante, let me give you an example. If tomorrow you are appointed as OSP, you went to Benkum Senior High, a school that you can't beat Laboni anyway, but that's not the conversation today. You went to Benkum, you went to University of Ghana, you were in Commonwealth Hall, you've come to you by all means have ties with people. You are human. I don't know, the expectation of independence was completely absurd right from the outset. It shouldn't have. It was needlessly utopian. Because why? You want the OSP to detach himself from human influences, rapports, relationships and connections built over the years. What is the thing? Why? Where was that expectation coming from? That the OSP was going to be very, impermeable to influence? No, it wasn't going to happen. So I'm coming. That made the creation in my mind. I thought, look, this creation and this establishment is muse because, of course, it's duplicitous. It will end up conflicting. So now, what do we have on our hands? We have an opportunity to, as it were, rectify the error that clearly had been brought into being. And so I do not see the politicization thereof, because in any case, let us even assume without admitting, this particular matter, and as Alpha has, elucidly explained, this is a matter of constitutional interpretation. The courts were just invited to comment constitutionally on a matter. It could have happened in any other administration. And doing fidelity to the law, this would have been the logical outcome anyway. The thing is that we whoever conceived the idea, any group, and I do not mean to attack anybody, it is something that should not have happened in any case.
Yeah, well, Justice Nanta in his view.
In 30 seconds. What we should have done, and what we have to still do, is to be able able to empower the office of the Attorney General in such a way that they will be able to do what is expected. And you see, in the US, for example, there is this movie, everybody can watch, Designated Survivor. That was when I first even heard about special prosecutors. They are not standing officers. They are imported for specific cases. When they discharge it, they are gone. So I don't know why we brought in this, and now somebody.
I think recently John Mahama speaking said that they were going to do something like that. I like what you've led it. Brilliant, brilliant. Please hold it there for me. But you see, Eben. So you see where Standoff has landed us. I think it's the design in what we saw from the start was a bit problematic. People have hold their views on that about whether or not the view was utopian or not. But given how Standoff is narrating this, and I want you to respond to that. But also, do you get a sense that perhaps the politicians of the day, the people in power today, are perhaps tired of the OSP, or perhaps the occupants of the office now, and want to do away with it, and they are trying to use the back door to do so? Hello, Eben. Hello, Eben. Let me hear from you, Mojaka. Let me hear from you on this point, and then when Eben. Oh, okay. I think the internet has gone off, and we perhaps have lost our people on Zoom. We'll fix that. But,
no, I'm here.
Okay, Mojaka. Let me hear from you.
Yes. Kwaku, now that I know you went to Benkum, I'm your landlord. I want to cap my. So when you meet me, you owe me rent. Okay.
Okuapimai and you are junior brother. Okay. So Benkum was founded long before Okuapimai. So I beg you.
Don't worry. All right. I think with the greatest of respect, I want to state that those who established that office, upon hindsight and everything, just wanted to take political box that we promised we are going to do this, and it was hurriedly done. Because at that time, as the lawyer said, Arthur said, those concerns came up, but there was no, what's the name, attempt to reduce or remedy the situation, because we were in hurry to, as the then president said, I'm in hurry to fix the problems of Ghana. We were in hurry to take a political box. We just went through. I disagree with anybody who say those in power today are tired of the OSP. As the lawyer on the panel said, it is a constitutional interpretation, an invitation given to the judge, and he did what he should have done. As he said, it can come anytime, any day. So I don't think this is political. My only worry as someone who align with fight against corruption, our collection, our individual way of solving corruption or contributing to coming against corruption, that is inimical to our development. I think we've been let down this time around. Look at the amount of money we've invested in this. Lady Kwaku, I wouldn't want to say align with the thought that it is political. I think we didn't do right from the start. So it's a learning curve for us. As Standoff said, it's an opportunity. Let's not miss this opportunity to miss another opportunity. Let's grab it, amend the necessary laws. I think the office there, even if it is not catching anybody, its existence alone can serve as deterrent to other people who may want to engage in corruption. So as we came on this show the other time, Standoff would remember, we said that the office is good, but I think all the bats, this is an opportunity to remedy those Kwaku.
Yeah, Eben, the question I was asking you, I don't know if you caught it, but now that you're back, can you please look at that for me? The question about the design, about the utopian nature of the idea, as Standoff likes to put it, but also whether or not you see that there's a certain attempt, particularly by the government of the day, from the AG down to the next person, of using the back door to perhaps shut down this office.
But I think that is usually those are the political arguments people will easily make, and they are sensational, and they are easily the ones that they are a bit pedestrian, if you like, because of course a lot of times they are not based on any factual evidence. But like we say, perception is usually, corruption is mostly measured by perception and sometimes optics, and so it's not weird when you find people make such conclusions. Like initially, I have also had a bit of those thoughts at some point, but I think that looking at how the conversation around the office has gone for several years now, it is obvious that there's a problem, and we cannot pretend that there's not a problem. And I think the point Standoff made, it's something I've heard people say. The mere fact that we probably put the adjective special prosecutor probably doesn't mean that you are superhuman or you cannot falter. Somebody says that the notion that the SP is inherently more independent and non-partisan than the AG is illusory. And so it's an argument people can make. So however you say it, at some point there ought to be some level of checks and balances, because there's also a danger when you invest so much power in one person at a certain level without control. And it's a reality we have to come to. And when we started, I talked about the fact that the models exist. Ghana is not doing anything out of the vacuum. We are not the first to have anything called special prosecutor. People have done it before we came in. But what model we chose is now probably what is hurting us and how we choose to go about it. So I was saying, if we chose the US model, which is based on specific cases and yes, it's temporary, and even that one, the person has recourse to the AG. It's the AG that they set them up, they deal with the case. When they are done, their work is done until there's another case that requires a special prosecutor. Why did we decide to have this system? A permanent prosecutor with so much power that's not so clear. And now we are here struggling. So clearly there was an issue. And I think that, like my brother who just spoke, sometimes the problem with our politicians here, especially in Ghana, is that a lot of ideas or policies that eventually are implemented are mostly not well thought through. They are talked about vaguely on campaign platforms. And then right before election, they quickly find a way, put it in their manifesto, and then we are gone. You remember when Kwaku Asante started Free SHS, he once went to BBC and they were asking him how he would fund it, and he was struggling. Most of our policies, that's how it has been. Currently, the NDC is struggling with the same 24-hour economy. Somebody said it on platform. You don't know where it came from. First, 133, where people will go to work, others will come, as if it was so easy. That is how we've run this country. And that's the problem we're having with the OSP. Akufo-Addo said it the same. We'll have a special prosecutor to fight corruption. In order to prove that he was committed to fighting corruption, we hurriedly pushed through this. Because like my brother said, you had experienced lawyers like Gloria Akufo, you have Dami, you have Ayiko, to MPP are serious lawyers. We sat there and then we went through this, and then here we are. But like we said, we are all humans, and they are all humans. They can make mistakes. And like the lawyer who spoke very well said, the current SP himself has admitted that there's really an issue with the prosecutorial authority, the complexities around it, and the ambiguity. He admits. So if he admits, or the office, he himself even admits, then why are we even making this look like it's merely politicians going after the OSP? So I think that at this point, yes, people can do the political aspect of it and say whatever, but the reality is that there's a problem. We need to fix it, whether through amendment, Article 88, or what has to be done. That's it.
And this is what Justice Jante says about this political question. He says in his judgment, he cites actually the other countries in which they've had a special prosecutor, and they've had it by amending their constitution and putting it there. And then continue to say that this is not a situation in Ghana, probably because Article 88 of the constitution is entrenched, yet because there was the need to meet a campaign promise, some legislative gymnastics and re-engineering had to be done to see it brought to life without surmounting the glaring effect of Article 88 of the Constitution. So, Arthur, if the current law as it is, the AG and the government feel strongly about it, that perhaps there are issues with it, why not table an amendment before Parliament, amend it, fix it, or repeal the law, or do something about it? Why are we trying to put this or shift this onto the Supreme Court?
First of all, there is not an attempt to shift this onto the Supreme Court by government. That must be stated. It is a private citizen that has initiated the action. Secondly, we are all aware that we are in a constitutional amendment process. The Constitutional Review Committee, led by Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, finished its work and has submitted its report to the President. The Attorney General is currently working on an implementation committee process that looks at these provisions and implement them. And this morning, the Deputy Attorney General has indicated that if we want to properly fix this problem, only a constitutional amendment of Article 88 fixes this problem. So we have a window to fix the problem, which is by way of constitutional amendment. It is not going to be easy because it is an entrenched provision. And you know, the pathway for amend an entrenched provision is much more complex than non-entrenched provisions, right? We must go for a referendum. And when we attempted this referendum, you know, it has not gone well. But I think that we have a very good opportunity because of the sensitivity of prosecutorial powers to try and do the amendment. And that is a conversation for another time. And there's a conversation that in the broader interest of what government is doing, government must be credited for starting these constitutional reforms, and we must take advantage of that to get it through. And I am very strongly convinced that the Attorney General under the leadership of Dr. Dominic Ayeni, he's looking at the possibility of something like that. What the Attorney General is currently doing is just in fidelity with the Constitution. He swore to protect the Constitution, and that's what he's doing. There was an initial question that he said that perhaps this is just using legalese to try and undermine the office of the special prosecutor. To that question, I was already providing a response. The office of the special prosecutor itself, its current occupant, has just hacked the same point that Dr. Dominic Ayeni has made in the Noah Adamte case. Is the office of the special prosecutor undermining itself by happing that constitutional point? Joseph Penka, the Deputy Attorney General under whose regime or who actually supervised the introduction of this, says that they are partly to be blamed for such drafting error and for not authorizing the office of the special prosecutor properly. Is he also undermining the office of the special prosecutor by use of legalese? Ayikweotu, a respected former Attorney General, has made this same point that the Attorney General has made in a statement of case. And mind you, the Attorney General has not said anything in this matter except what he has written in statement of case to the Supreme Court in the Noah Adamte matter. The Attorney General, once again, has never been a party to the recent ruling. A recent ruling, because by way of public law remedy, only made orders which impinges on the work of the Attorney General, because then it directs the Attorney General to take over that. And the Attorney General has to comply. There may be disagreement with that decision, but that is a matter of the substantive disagreement by way of appeal, by way of challenging it.
Right.
But court actually had jurisdiction to do what it did, and the Attorney General must follow. In fact, more instructively, the person who presided over the passage of this act, just yesterday, Professor Michael Kwe, he was at the 150th launch of the Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court was established in 1876, and that began the formal introduction of the British adversarial court system into Ghana. So it is 150 years it's been, but he was there. And he admitted that the office of the special prosecutor, as it exists now, those prosecutorial powers cannot coexist with that of the Attorney General.
Yeah. And the former Attorney General, Nia Ikweotu, too, has been making the same point. So I think for that, for those who pay a lot of attention, I think there's a general confluence on that. I want to come to standoff. So do you think all of this, I mean, because sometimes, and I think every one of us maybe deserve a bit of the blame in terms of whether or not we help shape the public opinion very well when it comes to this. Do you get a sense that the public have been helping the way the narrative have been, one, because there's a certain view, very popular, very pervasive now, that this government is simply relenting on its so-called anti-corruption credentials. Already, there are claims that oral has been oral, because we are doing 1 year, 6 months of John Dramani Mahama, not a single corruption conviction yet. You have to put on your mic from there, Standoff.
Yeah, Kwaku, thank you. I think these are views that have to be promptly dismissed because they do not carry any weight nor merit whatsoever. I mean, the promise of oral, if we were to be fair, was made with recourse to the president's commitments to dealing with, I almost said illegal mining, dealing with the issue of corruption. However, we must also know that if you want to...
Yes, remember you had a concession.
I have nothing like that. Let's focus. So, I mean, if you want to deal substantively with the matter of corruption, you need a smoking gun. You need incontrovertible evidence to be able to hold those who have to be held to account, in that particular respect. And so that is what the oral setup has been doing during the period under review. The expectations from the public, I mean, those who validly say, look, as of now, we are expecting XYZ to have been jailed, ABC prosecutions to have been completed, and all of that, those sentiments and concerns are valid. But recourse must also be given to, first off, the need for, as I said, incontrovertible evidence to be able to pin down those who have to be held accountable in that respect. Now, that process does not necessarily imply that the promise of oral has failed. In any case, in the last update from the AG, we could all tell that significant work has been done and a lot of success has been chalked. But let's return to the substantive issue as to whether or not the current debacle is, a master stroke to oust the existence of the OSP. It is purely none of that. Like I'm saying, I mean, from the very outset, I had issues because it was very clear that this establishment was duplicitous. The role certainly was going to conflict with the already configured operations of the AG. Now, as a country, in 30 seconds, I'm saying that we have a fine opportunity to undo the blunder that we earlier committed ourselves to. How do we do it? I'm sure the lawyers, the fine brains, will be able to come around the table and say that, look, let's do, because Kwaku, I mean, you are an incoming lawyer. I may as well say that you're already like, Kwaku, clearly, don't you see the duplicity already? Already it is there. And you see, there are those who have also had concerns with this is not my view, I'm only amplifying the concerns that others have shared, who have also expressed a lot of revulsion, if I may, with the conduct of the special prosecutor himself. At the outset of this conversation, you played his tape where he came to tell us that Ankwa Numa, the nuclear Forwaerd, and that now has been rendered, so if an office, has been created, and then we are spending resources, and then we hear the chief occupant and administrator of the office come to tell us that as of now he has become a lone bird, he will do what he can under the circumstances. When the time goes, he would leave the scene. That was an outright statement of, if you like, discouragement, if not failure, because the man effectively is saying that he has been rendered incapacitated. I'm not saying that is justification for anybody to scrap the office, but I mean, let's look at the opposite. If, as of now, from the time the office was established up to date, if we could count at least 10 major significant prosecutions effected under him, do you think maybe we will even be having this conversation in the first place? So in terms of the constitutionality, yes, there's the element of duplicity, but then in terms of manifest performance and outputs too, really, what can we show? So I'm saying, if we have an opportunity to, as it were, undo what is obviously a blunder, let's do it without attaching any political undertones. I mean, it's unfair for anybody to say this is an attempt by the NDC to weaken the fight against corruption. It is a fight that government is committed to, and we'll see manifest results as we progress.
Eben, what do you think should happen going forward so that we can have some calm, because this is going to rage on. I mean, up until the day Supreme Court will rule on this big matter, depending on how it goes. I mean, the OSP in terms of prosecution is literally grounded to a halt.
Kwaku, seriously, I really do not know the way forward, frankly. I don't know how they are going to deal with it, because if the AG really takes the ruling of the High Court seriously, like the deputy AG told us today, that they are going to take steps to act on it. If they do that, then it means technically the OSP has been rendered redundant. I don't know how we are going to manage this, but I think that some way, somehow, there should be some conversations, especially behind the scenes, the collaboration between the agencies who all mean well for national interest should go on behind the scenes, and they should be able to sort this out while we wait for the Supreme Court ruling on the way forward.
Mojaka, what do you think should be happening in the coming days?
Yeah, thank you very much once again. As said by the good old Mr. Dazi,
you people, Ebenezer Dazi is not that old.
Don't worry. We are talking about his longevity on radio. Okay, so I just lost my line of thought. Yes, we will be waiting for what the Supreme Court will say. But as the Deputy Attorney General granted his interview, I think the horses has already bolted. They've gone. So I think the OSP can just hold on, wait for what the Supreme Court will say. And I strongly believe the lawyer is here. I don't know whether I'm right or not. This ruling will have a cascading effect on the other cases the OSP is still prosecuting. I don't know whether it will have any cascading effect on them. But until the Supreme Court speaks, the OSP has been rendered, for want of better word, let's say useless for now.
Interesting. Alpha, what should happen between now? Because of course the High Court order has come down. OSP says it's going to appeal. He has not done so yet. But we are waiting for the Supreme Court on the Noah Ephraim Adamta case. I think it will touch on all of these issues. The courts may perhaps take judicial notice of what Justice Nyante also did at the High Court. But what is going to happen between now and then? Can we calm some of the waters? Should the OSP, for instance, tomorrow or Monday morning write a letter to the AG asking for authorization, which will obviously come with terms and conditions, because the police prosecute on behalf of the AG, but there are terms and conditions. Today, the AG can recall an action from them, say, bring the docket, do this, do that. I'm sure that is what the OSP is guarding against. What do you think?
No, but those, what you call terms and conditions, are only requirements of law. The police are able to prosecute only certain offenses. All right. And in some cases, the AG's authorization circumscribes them to some certain monetary limits. And so where the authorization given to you, you exceed that authorization. If the AG calls you to reins you in, that is not an act of sort of interfering with the exercise of your prosecutorial powers. And it will be the same for our agencies. You know, the AG grants authorization for prosecution by many agents. The GRA, it prosecutes. Immigration Service, it prosecutes. Even the recently established Gold Board, under the Gold Board Act, as prosecutorial powers, as prosecution. But all of them are enabled by the AG within a certain framework. So, for example, if the Office of the Special Prosecutor is supposed to obtain its authorization, it will be only in respect of corruption and corruption-related offenses. So, if tomorrow they write to the AG that he wants to investigate and prosecute someone for robbery, right, and it has no relation to corruption, I mean, would that be appropriate? You understand? Those are the questions of law that those authorizations seek to answer. But the Deputy Attorney General has indicated clearly that upon request, such an authorization can be given. And I think that the OSP should be looking at that pathway for now, pending the determination that will be made by the Supreme Court in the Noah Adamte case. Once again, we must emphasize that this is not a government attempt to strip the OSP of its powers. Indeed, between the OSP and AG as institutions, not individuals or not tenures, the AG has prosecuted more corruption and corruption-related offenses and has secured convictions more than the OSP. So if we are looking at it on the face of performance-based, we will say that the AG's office, and once again, I'm not saying this term, the AG's office as an office, has fought corruption more. It's the AG office that has, obtained conviction in Sedina Tamaklo case, Eugene Bafu Boni. All of that were within the period that the Office of the Special Prosecutor was established. And like you said in your introduction, they have barely made any convictions. While that may not entirely be the fault, because prosecutions sometimes take a while. If we are measuring their nominal effort by prosecutions alone, we cannot say that the OSP is a very special institution fighting corruption. The AG never prosecute people in their appointment, because remember, the Attorney General's office in 2015 prosecuted Abu Gapeli, who was the head of the YE. And that is why the argument by Kwaku Asante is very sound, that the idea that the Office of the Special Prosecutor, because it is supposed to be independent, cannot be attended to by any other influence, and that necessarily every AG will be unethical in respect of the prosecution of corruption that happens under the AG. It's untenable. What we need is an ethical AG, because the AG has the power to also prosecute corruption-related offenses. If we have an ethical AG, and this AG has sounded the note of warning, and we have seen it, he's actually referred people in his own party for investigation, that when people breach the law, they would be taken to account.
Right.
Lastly,
Alpha, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. You want to do it for me? 10 seconds? Okay.
Just 30 seconds. Quickly, on the point of oral, right? I hear some people say that because oral hasn't achieved results yet, it is overburdened for the Attorney General to take over the cases of the OSP. First of all, that has become necessary by a court order. Until that order is vacated or reversed, the Attorney General has to obey. Secondly, there are a number of cases, oral cases, that are under prosecution, and we have achieved, the Attorney General has achieved the most speedily prosecution ever. The prosecution that has been secured in record time under our Fourth Republic took 2.5 years. As we speak, in about 4 cases that the Attorney General is dealing with, they have closed the case. Closed the case means they have presented all its evidence, and if the accused persons do not offer sufficient rebuttal or defense, they would be convicted. So it's only a matter of time. It should be credit to the Attorney General that he's following due process. The people on whose behalf he is administering this due process cannot be seen to be the one criticizing him. And lastly, for me, the silver lining in it is that if these convictions eventually come, we will not have people raise issues of due process, because we are all here witnessing how everybody is being given their right to challenge the process every step of the way.
Right.
And so those convictions will properly be received by the public.
Andy Dusty is up next with the library. Standoff, 10 seconds if you have any last words. Put your mic on.
The NDC is not against the fight against corruption. In any case, it is extremely committed to same. Except that, like I said, we have a fine opportunity now to undo the error that we inadvertently committed ourselves to by creating an establishment whose functions were clearly duplicitous with that of the configuration of the agent's office. That said, I want to indicate strongly that we may still need complementary agencies to support the fight against corruption. But as it is now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, for the fact that it basically mirrors what the AG is doing, maybe it's time we begin to have a serious conversation about it.
Thank you very much. My name is Kwaku Asante. Tomorrow, Newsfile will be discussing this. Of course, when these big legal issues happen, the only place to be is on Newsfile. Anywhere else, you will not get as much education and as much understanding. And as always, my boss, Samson Ladi Anyenini, will be sitting in the middle of the conversation and steering it every step of the way. You should tune in and you should listen, because that is where you get the kind of conversation that enriches the views that you've had. Andy Dusty is up next with the library as always. I'll see you again same time